And we're recording.
Okay, so let's bring this January 27th Eugene Toxics Board meeting to order. Can we go around first with introductions? My name's Andre Phelps. I'm vice chair, but I will be running the meeting today.
I'm Nicole Patterson. Oh, sorry. Did Evan want to go? Okay.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. This is
Oh, sorry.
Chair. Calling in remotely. Thank you, Andre, for facilitating. Citizen advocate.
Okay, and chair.
Nicole Patterson, community advocate.
And Don Egan is industry.
Mark Kruger, industry representative.
James Lenhart, program manager for the city of Eugene.
So first thing we need to do is approve the agenda. Does anybody have any changes or comments on the agenda? No? Okay.
Should I move to approve the agenda?
Second.
Okay, the agenda is approved as written. And then the next on our meeting agenda is public comment. We don't have anyone present today, so then we'll just move on to the staff report and update.
Okay, pretty quick update. Something that I don't know if I did in a previous meeting. I just want to make sure everybody knows that the lawsuit against the program is officially over.
Oh.
The state Supreme Court decided to not hear the appeal. So the appeals court ruling stood, which the program won out on every claim. So that is done now. Actually, been working with the different businesses of getting their backhoe fees paid to the program. So that's getting taken care of currently. So that ends the lawsuit.
Next question.
Yes.
So how is that going, that communication with the?
It's going well.
It is.
There's well, part of the slowdown is one of the businesses in the lawsuit finally submitted some updated FTE, which they had not done during that process, which then updated some of their invoicing. So there was a delay getting that through finance, and so everything's to them. Now we should be receiving payment any day.
And will they be incurring any fees for non-payment?
They will not be incurring any
Okay.
fees for non-payment.
Okay.
That was part of legal's advice. Is just take the money.
Okay.
And let it be done. So that is what is happening currently.
Will you update us in the future if there's any issues with any, or
Sure.
will you be able to? Okay, great. Because how many businesses? There were 5?
There were 5, yes.
5, okay.
And then we had spoken previous meetings about utilizing a rating system to be able to add to our information on the website. Working with that with ISD is still ongoing. It is proving to be somewhat of a challenge with the archaicness of the system. Also, along with that, fitting it into the priority list of all the other things that ISD has going on, especially for the fire department. So there's a couple layers to it that I'm still working through with them. I can say that as far as putting something together, as far as we've talked about a graphical map with that information, that we can do anytime we're ready. It's getting it into the reporting system that is much more difficult.
I'm sorry, what is ISD?
IT.
Oh,
sorry.
IT. Okay.
It's Information
Got it.
Services
That
Department.
makes sense.
Sorry. I did want to update you, as of the end of the year, 10 businesses have been added to the program, with 11 more that are currently in the onboarding status to get them fully on board with the program. So over this year, we should see at least 11 more come in, and we still have 7 more that have not yet fully responded to inquiries to their status.
Of those 10 or 11, how many will be reporting?
3 were reporting out of the 10. The rest are non-reporting.
Okay.
As far as the onboarding, I don't know yet, and that's part of what has to happen in that onboarding
Okay.
part is to find out how much they actually use. But they are they look like they will be a part of they should be a part of the program. So that is the new businesses, and then I was able to acquire some new information as far as dealing with our ongoing vacancies on the board, and that we will be having some more coming up this year as people's time rolls off. According to the city manager's office, previous board members can rejoin the board after they are off the board for 1 calendar year. So that does open up possibility for people who've previously been on the board to have a seat again if they apply for it.
And I'm done this year, right?
Yes, you are done this
And
year.
I'm done as of this summer?
It's as of June 30th.
June 30th, okay. And I'm the only one who's,
I believe you are the only one, but I can look that up in a moment.
the only reason why it would be somebody else is because I think when you take on a vacancy, you're.
Partial.
Yeah, it's considered, yeah,
Yes.
an actual, okay. Which, I can't remember.
Well, I came in on a partial,
You did?
and I still older people, I think,
That was
fill vacancies.
right on time.
So we should be looking for a neutral.
So we need to be looking for a neutral and still an industry advocate also.
Is the webpage going to be updated to reflect that they can
Yes,
reapply after a year?
Yes, and that's, I wanted to talk to you before I updated anything on the website.
Okay.
So yes, that will be updated on the website also.
Okay. We also should talk about the application, because
Mm-hmm.
there isn't, it's not neutral specific, it was a very confusing application from that perspective.
Okay,
So maybe we could talk about that at some point.
definitely. Would you like me to add that into like one of the future agenda items so that way I
Sure,
know
that would
to
be
agree with
great.
this?
Yeah, and then actually we can work on it as a group.
Yeah.
That sound okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah. And then we need to all start coming up with ideas of where we could get someone who would fit into this neutral position.
And then, let's see, we've been short an industry person for a while. Both of the industry advocates or representatives that were here when I started are probably not in a position to come back on. But I don't know if we have a list of former members that you could ping.
That's been actually my problem, is finding an actual list of former members from the records that were kept. So I'm struggling with that right now.
Okay.
And I'm digging through what is there, but things
Really?
aren't, yeah. So that's,
I mean, I have it from when I started,
okay.
but
'Cause
one of them has passed away, I don't think, in Kasi. Yeah. But
Because it looks like, Mark, you also expire this year.
that's what I was wondering.
Using partial effect, yeah. Wow, that time flies. There's quite a list of old meeting notes and information. So at the beginning of each of those, we introduce ourselves. Literally just go through and like every, I don't know, check it once a year through that list. And you should get a pretty good.
Yeah, I'll
Right.
look into that. And so I'm gonna go back and look for, especially for industry, but I'll look across the board of people who have been a part of the program over the last
So
several
I know
years.
who had my position, I don't know who had my position before.
So I'll go back looking through meeting minutes.
Okay. And then these new businesses, these 21 businesses,
Mm-hmm.
well, I guess we can't ask all of them, but whomever would qualify,
And I have articulated to each one of those.
a great way to try and get somebody.
Mhm. And so far, they have been unwilling
Right.
to step up to that.
Yeah. Understood.
But yeah, so that is the end of my update, as far as the items that I had there. So I will look through minutes to find previous board members that we can specifically reach out to see if they are interested in serving again. And then the other big one would be also the neutral position as of June of this year. Also, Crystal's first term will be expiring in June too. So if she wants to do a second term, she can apply for a second term.
But it's not marked, would be the end of your first term?
I had that partial, which I believe counts as a full.
It does, and
Yeah.
And then I went for this is my second term effectively.
Okay,
Yeah.
so sad.
It's like the Roman consuls, they could serve 2 terms and they had to take a break, and so they would end up
Right.
trading back and forth between themselves.
For this neutral position, I really think the U of O is probably the best place to look for somebody.
Mhm.
So the law school, any of the graduate, like environmental, not environmental, but any of those programs, so. The sustainability program, maybe. Chemistry, maybe, something.
Yeah, if you have anything to put up, I'm happy since I'm there every day. Happy to put it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can be an odd position to fill. So.
Yeah.
Because it needs some creativity. Or finding something.
Yeah. Okay.
So, done with the staff report, we move on to discussion and decision. We're going to review the fiscal year 21 budget, fee and work plan information. So again, James, I think this is for you.
So I have provided everybody a packet of information. Evan, I think yours is mostly up to date. I was not expecting, I had to update some numbers today right before I came, businesses are still trickling in FTE. This is as of the most up-to-date information we have available. So the first sheet we can look at is the staffing level budget comparison sheet for the draft FY21 budget. You'll see the top line is the amount for staff, aka me. If you look at the third column where it's FY21 estimated 100% staffing, that is the full staffing cost that finance is providing. That is the main number that changes for each option from 95%, 90%, 85%, and 80%, because each one changes by how much of the staff time the board wants to have. Below are the other expenses that the program has, everything from building and land to telephone service, office supplies and the like. Most of these numbers are provided to us by the finance department of the city. Those by staffing level do not change. They are the same for each option. The only thing that changes is the amount the program will be paying for staff. If you look at that along with the 3-year program history, you'll notice that the cost for staffing has decreased this year compared to previous years. Due to my lack of tenure with the city, that has decreased that number. If you looked at comparatively the 90% staffing compared to this previous year, our current fiscal year, you'll see that the amount is less. There have been some increases to the program budget. Some of that is some areas such as the risk rates. The fire department last year had miscalculated the amount of the risk rate for the program, which is the insurance coverage of the program. So that is more this year. It's at just over $1,300 compared to $980 last fiscal year.
They're charging you for your telephone?
So everything gets billed through. So that's how they calculate out phone coverage. And everything including IT support, fleet equipment, which is the program vehicle and the like.
I'm sorry, where is the line item that causes the decrease?
So the primary decrease, very right underneath the headings, is staffing total. Those are where you start seeing things decrease because the amount for staff has
Oh, I'm
decreased.
sorry. The difference between fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 for 90% staffing. I'm wondering where is the line item that decreases from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 20?
It's every staffing line item. So everything from wages, taxes.
Most of these increase between fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. I'm asking you which one is the one that causes the overall decrease in the cost for staffing at 90%.
They're two separate things.
I'm saying that if you look at 90% staffing,
Mm-hmm.
the percent difference from fiscal year 20 approved is negative $1,723.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these are actual increases, so I'm asking you, where is that negative change?
From FY20 was in staffing. Because
The very top line.
The very top line
Very
where-
top line, okay. Sorry, I just was not seeing that top line under.
that's okay. Yeah. For FY20 it was 109,502. And at 90% staffing for FY21, it would be 105,768.
And that means that your salary is going down?
The amount budgeted for the program, because I cost the program less than Joe did, because of Joe's length of time with the city.
That's what I thought.
So that means all the different line items from FICA to any benefit, all that stuff, it costs less in proportion because I cost less.
But this 109 was for you, not for Joe.
That was already dictated by finance, taking into account the previous level.
I see.
And I brought that up with them, but they said, no, this is the level that we are
Okay.
budgeting.
So this 105 is the true
Is
staffing cost?
is closer to
for
true.
you. Okay.
James, I just had a quick question.
Yes.
You found those additional programs to include in the toxic program, and so it'll reduce costs for for everyone, all businesses reporting and not reporting. I'm wondering, do you think, but I know that you also have some sort of discussions with the fire department around having a certain small percentage of your time be devoted to that other to the fire department. I'm wondering, like, do you given that the salary and the total cost will go down, do you have any kind of general preferences for the staffing level that you'd like to see for this fiscal year?
I can tell you that the fire marshal would still like to preserve at least 10% of my time, and part of that is even just taken up in weekly staff meetings. So it's making sure there's budgeted that, and if there's any potential support that may be desired from the fire department, so they would like to keep 10%. So I know they would not like to have less of my time with that.
And how do you?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. And is there any opportunities for you to hire or have an additional staff to support you, but still maintain 10% of your time over at the fire department? I'm just thinking, if we were to support you for 95% or 100% staffing, could we include a line item that could, give like an intern or another fire department staff to support you, but still allow the program to continue as usual, but you still staying with the fire department for that 10% of the time? I don't know if that sentence made any sense, but you get the idea. If there's any place for moving any additional people on, just for some support role, just to, I don't know, bolster the program.
So if I'm understanding correctly, keeping James at 0.9 FTE and then bringing someone in at like 0.1 FTE, is that the way of putting it?
That's what I understand you're asking. I would, to be honest, I don't see we necessarily have the workload necessary for bringing another staff member on. I think there is some bonus to evaluating something like an intern for certain time periods in the year. But by and large, the gaining that extra 10%, I don't think that's necessarily needed. But that's more, and one of the challenges is, even if the board decides to add more projects, there still will run into the issue anyway of funding. So if there's something, start saying, there's some bigger projects we want to do looking down the road, maybe not FY21, but maybe FY22, that would be a larger discussion, because you have to budget in staffing and costs for it. But as far as this year, I don't know if...
The other thing would be to build up guys.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Evan, did you have something else to say?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, sorry. I just don't hear everybody completely. So yeah, no, thank you. That makes sense.
So if I'm understanding you, we're taking the 100% staffing, 95% staffing off the table. And so we're looking at a maximum of 90%. And so the other two options, additional options, would be 85% staffing, 80% staffing.
Mm-hmm. If the board strongly feels that they would like something more, that's something I'd have to bring to the fire marshal.
Right. Does anyone see a reason to be asking for more time from James? No. What about less time from James? Would anyone like to have any discussion about less time for James? Can you hear us okay? Sorry, should we speak louder?
Oh, no, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any? Go ahead, Mark.
One thing that occurs to me is a while back we talked about to help reduce FTEs before we removed the ISD bank, I guess is the way to describe it.
Yeah.
We were adding money to ISD so that if they had to do some computer stuff, they would have enough money, and then we just sort of build the HMIS or the I don't know, rating system. I assume would require ISD use, which means they're going to want money. If we can start building bank ahead of schedule, especially since it looks like the FTEs are going to drop thanks to all the work you're doing to onboard folks. I mean, I don't want to wipe all that out, but it might be nice to build a little bit of a bank.
I think that's a great idea. What can you elaborate on this contractual services other? Is that something that's really set in stone at that amount, or?
That is something I have no control over.
Okay.
So
What
contractual
is that?
services other is covering administrative support from the fire department, so
Okay.
people call in through the main lines,
Right.
transferring over, finance support, part of the ISD support, outside of their primary hardware support. So like when we have an issue with the reporting software, and I say, hey, I'm not getting some information out of it, it covers that.
So related to what Mark was saying, and this is what I think you were saying, is if we wanted to add more to the budget for a line item like IT, where could that come from?
Well, that's something that I need to talk to finance a little bit about, because where I'm a little confused from the past of being able to, where there was the discussion of being able to tuck money away, since the program is technically set within the general fund, technically general fund can't hold money over. So I don't know how that, because it was before my time, I don't know how that conversation worked and how that can function.
I believe what happened is that we came up with this idea of what we wanted, and then we got an estimate for the cost of it. So then we, in the subsequent year, we saved the $5,000 to go towards that because it was a high priority for us to improve, well, the workload for the business end.
Mhm.
So that's where that was. It was basically we knew what the cost should be,
Mhm.
and then we put in a line item for the following year. So, and then that's where it went. It stayed, the line item stayed the next year,
Mhm.
and I don't think we spent it, did we? Okay.
That's
Okay.
that's
I can
part of
look
the
at
joy
my-
of it.
Okay,
That-
I have notes, and I can actually look to
Okay.
see about the line item issue.
Because the problem is because they set the program into general fund.
Right.
If I go through the finance system and see, okay, what were the funds as of the end of the year? It's everything is spent.
Right. So I think so would it work the way I just described it though?
If we preset this is how much the project should cost, then yes, you can budget it into that next year
Next year.
to be
Okay.
able to cover it. Doing it preemptively could be much bigger of a problem.
Okay. I believe that that's how it happened, and I can look it up to see.
And it's a balancing act because we do have a little bit more wiggle room thanks to all your work.
Mhm.
But at the same time, the companies that I and Don work for were already capped. So for us, but for the smaller companies, they're the ones who are going to see the impact if if we're able to lower the cost to them, or not lower the cost, it will impact them the most. So just something to keep in mind, I think.
So for instance, the rating system, that is something that would cost us funds, but we don't have an estimate for how much that would cost.
I've not been able to get a full estimate from ISD on that.
Okay, but
What
you've
about-
asked for one.
Sorry.
Go
What
ahead.
about the map part?
The map part I can do myself.
Oh, okay.
So as far as budgeting extra money, we wouldn't need to do.
Okay.
It would just be my time.
Yeah.
Do you see a way to get an estimate for that?
I will, after this meeting, I will reach out again. And see if I can get a clearer answer.
Okay.
And if you'll notice down at the very bottom row is the cost per FTE for target revenue. Evan, this is where your numbers might be a little different because I wasn't able to get you the updated version.
That's fine. That's fine. I think I get the general idea just based on percentage staffing.
Yeah, and it's pretty darn close to what you have. If you look at it at the 90%, you'll notice that due to the efforts of this year, we were able to drop that amount per FTE by over $10. So for
Okay.
a business of 10 at the lowest tier coming in, that'd be a savings of over $100 a year for them.
I'm
Okay.
sorry,
I
I missed
think-
the number for this year's FTE.
So for on
This one.
Very, very bottom line, actually.
the very bottom row.
Oh, here.
I see that, but where's the one for this year?
Depends on the staffing level. If we assume 90%, it'll be $52.37.
No,
That's for
fiscal
21.
year 20.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
fiscal year 20. Oh, that's
Other page.
it's
Not on here. That's
it's on the other page. It's on the
Yeah,
FY20
it is.
approved. Sorry, and that was at 62.25.
62.25, yeah.
So not quite $10 down.
Okay. Would you mind putting that on this?
Sure.
Okay.
So a quick question, I noticed that external telephone's not on any of the other, was that added?
No, it just was not budgeted. That was one of the things I found this year after the
Okay.
program ongoing,
Right,
where it was being charged to the program, but it had never been added into the budget.
Okay.
huh, okay.
So it was a big surprise. For this year, the good thing is that we are coming in under budget,
Right.
and we have had new businesses come in, which has brought in more money into the program than what was budgeted. So it works out in our favor. But this year, I was able to add that in
Okay.
specifically
makes
to the
sense.
budget.
questions from anyone else? Okay, so, aside from Mark's idea that we should consider the potential for a line item, I think the only line item that could possibly be put in quickly would be this rating system addition, right?
Mhm.
And you were going to work on getting a potential estimate for that. But
Oh,
now, my question for you is, do you have any thoughts on this staffing? Like, could you see yourself dropping to 85% or 80% for some reason? And how would that, and what are your thoughts on that in terms of how you have been working for the past year at 90%?
I mean, I think 90% is the way to go,
Okay.
personally. At this, and I will bring up this also with the fire marshal to make sure that she does not have any updated wants with that. But I from our previous conversation that we had, the 90% makes the most sense at this time. And so I will get that final information, see if I can get that information for the project with ISD, or with the IT department, and what that cost would look like.
Right, so then after you get the cost, then if you could get it quickly, what's our timeline for this, by the way?
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
So
That's all.
it's from the notes from Joe was normally acquire the preliminary budget information as of October. I got this information as of the week of Christmas. So that obviously puts us in a time crunch, which is also why I combined it all together with beginning to talk about fees.
Okay.
So we can try to be as efficient as possible. So I will find out that information as quickly as possible.
Okay, so you were hoping to get us to vote on this today?
I wanted to be open to that.
Okay.
But being that we have this question about this other funding source,
Yeah.
I can.
So what does everyone think?
I think we should wait
Yeah.
until we get the budget,
The estimate?
write the estimate for
For
the
that.
rating system.
It is really nice to try and to get these things moving forward.
Yeah.
But don't see that as a problem if we wait till our next meeting?
I don't see that as a problem. I would recommend. I will then this week probably send out a poll for the next meetings. Try to get it a little closer together.
Yeah.
So we can, after I got to go through the process for the first time last year, trying to get something all the way through city council, now just knowing how much of a hurry up and wait it is, I have a better idea of how to get it quicker, but that means I want
Yeah,
this to be ahead of the game.
I guess that would be the trade-off, is that we're gonna be meeting sooner, to vote on the budget. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're really close, because I think everybody's
Yes.
pretty much in agreement, it's 90%.
Yeah,
Everything looks good. The only question is, what can we do with the ISD, right?
right, and then that would also increase the cost per FTE.
Right.
So, okay,
Okay.
so I think, so if I'm gonna summarize, just what Mark just said, that we're pretty much are thinking that the 90% sounds like the best way to go. We're just looking to see what this estimate would be for the rating system addition.
Will do.
And we will meet soon to vote on this budget.
Do you think you can get that information from them?
I hope. I mean, to be really honest, I've had multiple conversations and haven't. It seems like every time I get half information, and so it's a lot of pushing. There is always the potential, which I will bring up to them, that ISD doesn't like having an outside contractor do things. It has been done. It can be done. And I just found that out last week of saying that is a potential out there. So I'm going to float that to let them know if it's outside of your capacity, just by staffing capacity, is this something we need to look at to try to see if I can motivate and encourage
Right.
some of that. I also, in this process, found out some intricacies of the process that I didn't know and made some missteps. Oops. But it's becoming clearer.
Yeah. This is not something I know about. Is it possible to vote on something, approve something with a contingency attached to it, a future contingency? Like, could we vote on, say, yes, we all approve a 90% budget, for instance, and then with the contingency that's where we would stand if you cannot get an estimate for this before
Just
our
to
next
move it.
meeting?
I
Do you have
don't.
any idea?
I don't see why not. I don't know a definitive on that.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of voting on the 90%. Because the challenge where it comes in is that what it really comes down to is once I find out the information from ISD, if it's the 90%, then I have to go through city's attorney's office to have the ordinance start to be drafted and things like that. So I can't start that until we're final on that number.
Can we vote on that number as long as it doesn't exceed some number? If that makes any sense.
That's
Do you
what I
have
was
an
thinking.
estimate?
Yeah. Do you have a vague idea?
Yes,
I do not.
somewhere around,
I mean, yeah. I think if we like agree that it's something around, like not to exceed like twice the current rate, maybe something like that. I don't know.
I think it might be too
I
complicated.
think
It
that's
might
getting.
just sit, I mean, it was just a wild idea I had, so maybe we'll just sit with it. If there's no real urgency
Yeah.
right now, then maybe we can, yes.
I think we're still in a good spot.
Okay.
As of this juncture, we're still in January. We can still meet in February to get final approval.
Okay. Does that domino with, our work plan and fees?
So then the other attachment I gave was the basic, the kind of the older version of the work plan. I went through it personally. I went through just looked and saying, okay, do I still feel these percentages were reasonable carrying over from last year, and I feel that they're pretty good.
That's great.
Actually.
Did you have any things you wanted to change on?
No, I started looking and thinking I did, but then when it came down to, I actually went through and I crunched it to what the actual number of hours would be by percentage.
Yeah.
And it really, as it stands here, I think is the safest space it can be, where it has each one has a little bit of wiggle room each way. Last year, I intentionally decreased the amount for the budget because we originally budgeted much more for that. It's not needed.
Okay.
So I was able to complete the auditing for this last year within that time period. So that was the big one that I didn't know as when we did budget last year.
So you're saying that at 90%, looking forward, you feel that these numbers wouldn't change for 90% staffing?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Is there, I did a real quick add and I came up to 61. I just added 9 plus 1 plus 1 plus blah, 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 blah. And I ended up to 61. Am I missing a page?
There's a
8, 9.
one page, if you flip it over, it has a second page.
Yep.
Is
It
that
has
both
like
those?
the 3 and the 9 on it. I must have done a math there or
I
something.
got like 40. Oh, but then there's this page.
What's going on?
Yeah, I probably made a math error, but just to make sure I'm not.
No, you might be on something.
yeah, and,
Yeah, I got 61. And that's assuming that less than ones are ones.
Am I missing a
Yeah.
page on this?
Mhm.
Just one moment.
I can look at like.
Because that's what, it sounds like I'm missing a page.
Gotta be.
If there's that big of a withdrawal.
Yeah. It's 68.
That's substantial.
Yeah. 10, 8, 9, 10.
First page I have is 8.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, I see. What am I doing? I have it right here. What?
Yeah, I think there's a set, maybe 7 is missing.
Oh, that's something different right there.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it right there. I'm missing that page.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No worries.
That has a lot of stuff right there.
So-
Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
that's
that is the page.
That's the
there you
page.
go.
Yeah.
So, did we want to move around, because you mentioned working with IT to make more efficient records. Would changing your percentage of staff time there help you to kind of streamline later processes?
It doesn't really, because a lot of that comes down to working with the database, and that's me talking to them and
Yeah.
then them doing it
Them
on
doing
their
it.
own. So
Okay.
it actually doesn't take much of my time.
Got it.
It takes very little.
So it's really just the budget.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Have you gone through this to look at it if we did drop down to 85% staffing, what you would take out?
I have not, but I.
You don't have to, I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on that. Evan, do you have any thoughts on the work plan?
On the I mean, I think I'm gonna defer to the 90% staffing, just because it seems like it sort of, holds consistent, but I'm happy to hold off if that's the consensus around waiting for those extra, and extra numbers to come in.
Do you have any comments on the time allotted for the work plan?
Oh, let's see. Not off the top of my head. Are there issues that you see that come up that might, make our jobs more difficult if we let it go too long?
If I don't see it taking a little bit more time to find out that last bit of information, I don't see that being a problem if we can meet within the next few weeks.
Yeah, then that sounds great to me. Yeah, more information is always better than none. But I'm happy to, to preliminarily, support the 90% staffing. But again, it sounds like, we could just wait till we have more information if that's what other folks would like.
Mark, Don, Nicole, any thoughts on the work plan?
Just thinking, you've asked about the 85, depending on what the estimated budget for the ISD would be,
Mm-hmm.
that might be another area to generate funds. Is that what you were thinking, maybe?
Yeah, I was just thinking that the difficulty with putting off this topic
is that it always takes, we have to usually in the past I've seen, we have to rediscuss it all.
Mhm.
And people have different ideas, new ideas come to the surface, so I was just wondering, this, specifically this, so if we do get a number, let's say $6,000.
Yeah.
More than we wanted.
Right, how, people might be looking at changes, just what you're saying, changing it, so I was just.
Well, I can specifically look at where I think that would affect theirs. I'd have to get those, just in a quick glance, I would say it's probably in some of the areas of especially the program management, which is one of the largest areas. That's things including let's see here. Of just how much time I take to monitor different organizations and what they're doing, to see if there needs to be changes to the changes that I need to recommend to you guys for chemicals in the program, program improvement processes, things like that. The things that are good, but they aren't.
Right.
Right.
So rather than, that sounds like it might affect the quality of the program. It says on here 9% allocated to conduct public education and outreach. I know that's something we've talked about doing, but how much of this is an increase from before? Because, to my knowledge, we don't do a ton of this, and that's something that's come up. So would this be a better area to sort of move around?
No, that could be one. That one varies. This year it's happened more because I've had to do a lot of conversations with people as doing the amount of outreach that I've done.
Okay, so this is an increase from previous years?
It actually wasn't. The main areas that we saw moving around was I decreased the amount of budget time. That was quite a bit larger in previous years. But I found ways to speed that up dramatically, which allowed me to shift those numbers around.
Tell me again, first glance, where you were thinking.
In some of the areas of the non-essentials within program management, where the program can still be running, but maybe not taking as much time, including things taking as much time hunting down new businesses. Like obviously still looking, but maybe not as much time combing.
Something that can wait a year.
Yeah.
While we build.
Or as I try to go through and pay attention what's happening with the EPA, what's happening with these different organizations, just wouldn't happen as often, and so it wouldn't be so that there's some of those things, and that's just a slight shuffling of priorities through the year. And also, to be honest, it's like I'm getting more efficient with it as I go, as I'm realizing the ins and outs of how this program operates.
Great. So, anyone else want to talk about anything else on the work plan? Okay. So maybe though for next time you could come prepared with where you would shave off 5%.
You bet.
Okay. Just so we could have, if that comes up at the next meeting, we could easily address it.
Sure.
And then if you do get an estimate, we would need you to rerun these numbers also.
Yes.
Then the fee, so we have 3 items here, budget, fee, and work plan. The fee is really associated with the cost.
Exactly.
So,
The
right.
fee really goes directly with which budgetary option you
Okay.
go with.
Okay.
And that tells us our fee, and I try to keep that as tight to what the actual cost is as possible, and change.
Yes.
So we're not going in the negative.
And you'll be able to add this column on here.
Yes.
Okay, great.
No problem.
Okay, so last on here, we have future agenda items. And we already have added one, which is a discussion about the application for the new position and where to recruit for that. And it could be a larger discussion if anyone wanted to about the application process in general. But really we need to get these positions filled, right? So that
would be great. And then video presentations is sitting here, which was something we talked about a couple meetings ago. Any progress?
We haven't.
I missed the last meeting, but I just finished my toxics inventory report and did a lot of thinking. You did some modifications to the how-to book. It looked like something was different about it. It was a lot clearer. Maybe I'm just getting used to it. But it makes me wonder, because I try to be as accurate as I can be, it just makes me wonder how accurate other people are, other businesses, as far as their reporting goes, or if they really know how to report on, say, solids versus liquids, full-time employees, how they do their calculations on that. I mean, there's certain presentations we can do that standardize that, and we can reference those on the webpage. But there's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah.
And how accurate somebody is versus another organization, I mean, what's really right and what's not, you know? So where do those standards come from? I mean, you take a liquid that's got a specific gravity of whatever, and say it's 1.1% of water, so it's like, say, 8.5 pounds. And this specific chemical is between 10 and 15, so you use 12.5%, and you calculate that weight. Now, some things are done in gallons, and people understand that everything is reported in pounds, and there's got to be, especially with these new businesses that are coming in, they're gonna have to report. They're gonna go, what the, and they're not gonna know. And that's gonna continue for who knows how long. I'm not volunteering myself to make these videos, but I know a lot about it and how to do this reporting. And I mean, I can start making a list of different things. I don't know what was discussed in the last meeting about this type, about this
Where we're
video.
going with it, yeah.
And it's just, and being able to prove everything. Do you have your purchase orders? How do you do your year-end inventory? What do you base that on?
Have you thought about this particular way of stuff getting off your site?
Yeah, I mean, how do you get rid of this stuff? I mean, do you throw it away, or is it this liquid consumed by, say, an oil absorbent, which you can throw away? So how are you marking that on the sheet for how it was disposed, transferred off-site, whatever? And how much was going down potable water, or there's so many different chemicals and how they're used, and that's the main thing they gotta have to understand is it's how they're used in the company, because it could be what I use, like I use MEK at my company this way, he uses it a different way, and mine could be a non-reportable, where his is a reportable. You know, how much, what the pound is, and they need to understand that everything's gonna be converted to pounds, so they know if they're at the 2.2 or they're under 50, etc. And I don't know a real good way to do that. They're like training videos, they would have to be. And there could be 100 of them.
Well, I'll be honest, when I've read through the manual multiple times this year now, especially going through the auditing process, and it half the time is clear as mud.
Yeah.
Like it's not very intuitive to read it and then just know what you're supposed to do. And especially I ran into actually the issues of the thresholds.
Oh yeah.
As I was reading through it, saying, oh wait, this one's now below.
The 2.2.
We just have to show that we brought it in.
Yeah, and that we do track it.
But then it's out of balance for the next year when they increase the amount that they use.
That's right.
And it gets horribly confusing. And so there's some things like that of where people may not know, may not realize.
And then have you, during your audits, have you done any audits since you've been in here?
Mhm.
So what kind of problems are you seeing?
The biggest problems that I was seeing were December 31st inventories not matching January 1st.
January 1st, right?
That is the most common one, which surprised me, because that should be the easiest one to catch.
I did notice something this year when I transferred last year's information into this year's information,
Mhm.
they didn't match.
Really?
Yes. And I get, where the December 31st should be the January 1st, but I had other information come in.
Interesting. Well, the stuff I was looking at was all older, so, but that means this could be a problem that has been going on for a little bit.
Yeah. And,
So that's something I'll
so
need to
there
talk to
was,
ISD on.
I can't, because I overwrote them, what the values were, but it was on inputs. And
Okay.
it wasn't just January 31st inventory, it was, I had one that came in, I think it was a brought on site.
Okay.
Where'd that come from? So
Okay.
there is some issues with that.
Mhm.
And there was some beginning inventories where that didn't look right to me, and that didn't match the data I had, and I went back and looked on the previous year's reports, and they were wrong. So,
The other area that I found primarily was, I don't know if it was a new person at the organizations or not, so I'm still waiting to hear back from some of them. But where suddenly, because I'm looking at, I set myself up with a tool to be able to compare the averages over the last like 3 or 5 years, including their standard deviation. So that way I can kind of see, are they within the realm of where they have been, or is there a big difference?
Change.
Well, and it was something I was noticing where it was, oh, no, we're just this is being thrown away, when previously there was a big portion that was emitted to air. I'm like,
yeah, where'd it go?
it's like, are you, so my comment in the audit was, well, and previously this is what's been going on,
Uh-huh.
please clarify.
Huh.
So that way they can, I mean, and it may be, well, we're stopping using it, and we've disposed of it. Or it may be somebody got a little sloppy, or somebody just didn't realize just made a mistake. I don't know, so I asked the question in the audit process. And I'm waiting to hear back from there were 2 primary businesses that did that. And so, but that was one that I saw repeatedly, was suddenly shifting from the output from previous years, so the trend suddenly shifted. I was like, okay, let's find out why that happened. But that tells me also there might be a training issue there of people not really seeing that you can't just throw it into one of the columns. You actually have to
No.
you have to calculate it.
Did you create that tool to look back over years at the,
So that was
did you tell us about that?
that was part of the tracking database that I put together. I quickly
yeah.
pulled in all the data from the reporting system so that I actually had something more authoritative I could comment on, because
Yeah, that's great.
and
Fabulous.
so that way, and it's also I'm logging everybody's responses with that too, so that every year we'll be able to see this is what happened, this is what happened in their audit, this is how they responded to it.
Right.
And that will also give us more trends to be able to see. Well, so I'll have logged why was there a deviation or a problem, and hopefully I can give that to you guys to be able to evaluate more insight.
Great.
Yeah, it's not cut and dry
No.
at all, because everybody's different how they use their chemicals.
Am I hearing that we need to take a look at the manual and update it?
It does sound.
I don't know. I mean, the manual is really pretty good. It can't possibly cover every situation. You can't. But if in these video presentations, they need to be put up somewhat generic, but specific enough so they know, yes, this is going to evaporate. Now this process is discharged to potable or is transferred off-site as waste. How are they tracking it? What's their proof that this stuff was done correctly and how it was calculated? It's like if you have a waste product going to a landfill, like a filter cake from my galvanizing wastewater treatment plant. How much zinc is really in it? How often should you test it? And do you base that on a 2-year average, 3-year average, or whatever, or just look at it every 5 years and make sure it's still approximately the same? And some people may not even think about that.
Mhm.
You know, if you have a special waste permit, there's a reason.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, whether it's your ripper metals or any other thing, classified as hazardous.
So kind of looking at moving forward with this idea of video presentations, one idea would be for all of us to look at the manual and come up with a few places. Well, maybe making sure that we feel like it is clear enough. I mean, it sounds as if you have some areas of concern in there.
I do. I think there's some ways that where it's set up, if it was set up in a more technical manner, it'd be easier to find some of the information. Like it took me a little bit to scour to find the thresholds.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't clearly articulated. Reporting thresholds.
And if it was highly hazardous or just hazardous.
Yeah, and so then it was like, oh, hey, that's
Yeah.
so I think there's some formatting in it that definitely can be improved.
Mhm.
But I think I'm personally I think what you're looking at as far as these kind of small Q&A videos could really benefit people a lot, because instead of somebody saying, oh, I know that's in the manual somewhere,
They can go to,
I don't want to look at the manual.
right.
But if they can say, oh, all I have to do is toxics reporting threshold, search, and oh, look, there's a little,
There it is.
there's
Yeah.
somebody, oh, okay, so that's what I need to know. Okay, great, move on. And even for me, getting these types of questions, it's handy to be able to say, here's the answer. Also, here. And we send you a link.
4-minute video.
Yeah, little video to be able to understand this.
Yeah.
So we know that we have a need for that. We have to, you know, we can't just all of a sudden have a list of 100 videos to make, right? So I'm trying to figure out how it is that we come up with a beginning for this, right? Like, let's say identify 3 to 5, for instance, topics that we would want to do this on. So how do we do that? My idea was for all of us to kind of look at the manual and then come up with where we think that
Oh, yeah.
it's unclear, and then maybe also identify places in the manual that's unclear. But I will
Is it
take other suggestions.
Possible for you to come up with like kind of a vague idea or vague list of like the FAQs that you get, like
Sure.
that could help.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's actually in the manual.
Yeah, there's an
Yeah,
FAQ
but-
in it.
Right.
But I think she means more of the current questions
Yeah,
I'm
right.
getting.
What are you getting? Yeah, what's not being fulfilled by?
Which
either
right now it's
FAQ?
great because I'm getting all sorts of questions because we have bunches of new
Right, so
people.
this is
Right.
great.
Mhm.
Especially a lot of people in the cannabis industry right now.
Oh,
They're the newest ones.
Mhm.
And
It's best practices, right? So there's nothing that says you have to. So one of the things I do is we clean the paint tanks. We have this stuff that we send to distill. Sometimes we have too much of this solvent, waste solvent, and so I send it off for disposal. Well, it's sent off for disposal, which means it has to go out in the disposed column. But what's its content? Because it's a mismatch of this, that, and the other. So, you know, what's best practice? Basically, the best practices. So, how often should you sample your bag house finds? How much material should you be collecting to make that representative sample?
Mhm.
Just sort of general best practice things like that would be spectacular.
yeah.
There's a ton.
And I think the benefit would be twofold. One, it would improve the reporting of the company's reporting. Two, it might,
Teach people stuff, yeah.
well, a little bit on thin ice here, but sometimes I get the feeling that they're like, oh, you know, we're like trying to hide things or we're doing things incorrectly because we like twirling our mustaches and you know, I don't know, being evil. Sometimes we're doing things wrong because it's hard and easy to, and if you can
Right.
show, look, this is so complicated, here, watch this video and you figure it out.
Right.
Well, and I'd even say things like, you know, how to be prepared for an audit. Because you're gonna be audited.
Yeah,
Everybody's gonna have one, so
It's every 3
what's,
years.
how's the best way to be prepared?
So how do we come up with, how do we start this? How do we start this process? What are your
well, I
thoughts?
like your idea where each of us take a look at the
Yep.
user manual
Yeah.
or the how-to manual and
Mm-hmm.
write down the questions that are confusing to you,
Yeah.
or doesn't quite make sense, or how can this be improved? Or, you know, and then I think of things as a user, as somebody that does this every year,
Yeah.
start with the basics. You know, how do you determine your full-time employees?
Mhm.
You know, a lot of people do not know how to do that.
Mm-mm.
And what's the difference between you know, you take like stainless steel, and you have cobalt, chromium, all kinds of nice little things that are in them. But how do you use that? Do you modify it? Well, if you modify it, you gotta report it. If it's an item, you don't have to. So where do you make that difference?
Mhm.
And where does welding wire come in? You know, and so there's a lot of things. And it's fairly clear in the book, but I don't know if more examples are needed, or, I mean, God, there's so many processes, you know, it would take forever to,
Well, I think it's worthwhile to look at, you know, obviously you two work at organizations big enough to have a professional that understands all this, especially a lot of our smaller businesses. They may not,
Yeah.
when you're a smaller company. So what are the things that we can present to help someone best succeed in doing this? And even, especially from a citizen advocate stance of, is there anything that we need to have out there so that this is how to understand this information if you want to look
Right.
at it?
Yeah.
Because we've talked about before that it's not the most
No.
intuitive to just look at this going, oh, this means something, or this looks like a bunch of numbers.
Right.
So, you know, I think there's a wide variety of things, and it's probably a conversation that's going to keep going.
Mhm.
and that's one of the things we were talking about is if, say on the Toxins database, you're going through an SDS and you're entering CAS numbers in there, and a CAS number pops up and you've got this chemical, and what is it? And why do I care about this? And we were talking about changing that to put a link on it to, what's the other database online that brings up all the details about the chemicals?
Yeah, SDS? No.
No,
So it-
this rating, is that?
Well,
Yeah.
go to like, well, the EPA runs, it has a site that has information, there's also.
There's the
NIOSH.
handbook,
NIOSH.
NIOSH handbook,
Yeah.
that's it. And if that was the one we choose, I mean, there's so many, but NIOSH is updated constantly. But, you know, how do people even know what to report? I mean, like my process is take every SDS one at a time, enter every CAS number, and see if it pops up.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, well, I mean, I've been doing this for years, and I found new stuff this time, and I know something, these chemicals weren't just added. And so where did I miss that? So,
So I think, can I just suggest that after this meeting, can you send out an email to all of us with the work, not the work plan,
The manual.
the
Manual,
manual
yeah.
attached, and say that we are planning to have it on our next agenda, that all of us review the manual, and that we come with at least 3 to 5 topics or sections that need to be further clarified? That sound all right? And I just want to make sure, just to circle back, that this is a big issue, this importing not working.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you have access to be able to determine that's a real issue?
I'll reach out to ISD, the challenge that I didn't even know was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Normally, it's been great in the past, I haven't had
Okay.
any problems. This year I had problems.
so I will bring that up with ISD and have them start testing that right away.
Okay, great, that would be great, okay. Anything else from anybody? Anything else, Evan?
Oh, no, that sounds like a great way to sort of get, redo the, the way to have greater transparency for everybody included. So I like that idea.
Okay. Any other future agenda items people want to add on? I think we just brought in, this discussion about the manual. But anything else anyone wants to add on that's sort of just to start putting on the list? No? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then we will adjourn this meeting early at 5:47. 4:47.
Thank you so much, Andre, for facilitating.
Yes, we miss you, Evan.